because we're at a time now where the business has evolved to such a remarkable mainstream place. I think it'd be very sweet just to hear a little bit about the beginning. And I have some great pictures of the restaurant. There are a couple of Francisco when he was really young, and I couldn't find the one of Joan on my hip behind the bar, but there are more of those. Those are nothing, but there are some that you'll see the original restaurant with all the wallpaper and all its glory. But it started from that picture of my mom and dad, who I think you all know opened this restaurant with me. And my dad was the original baker. And I love for you to tell people that, because both of them are gone, but they were so much a part of this place. And as we're remodeling the kitchen, which is going to happen soon, it's going to be so awful in here, but then it's going to be so wonderful in here. I always look and say, you don't touch that bowl, because I'm not sure if you all know, but the metal bowl, do you all know that it's the bowl that my dad baked the biscuits in? It's the same bowl. It's 32 years old. It's beat to crap, but we do it on the same board in the same way my dad did, because when my dad and mom used to come in here and learn how to eat and drink cheap wine and mix the red and white together to make rosé, my dad would test out the biscuits. There's something in the back I have for Steve, and I'll give it to you later. He would test out the biscuits to make sure that we were still doing them right. So I come from a small coal mining town in western Pennsylvania. My dad owned a grocery store. I did not go to cooking school, but my dad was a very local person. He had he was an Orthodox Jew, and he had a grocery store near the shul, and in the grocery store he made everything from scratch. He had his own bakery. My name is not really Jessie. My real name is Susan, if those of you who don't know this. But and it changed during hippie days, but the bakery was called Susie Q Bakery. A lot of this is probably not going to make sense. I'm going to try to make sense of it, but the bakery was called Susie Q Bakery, and he would use local fruit to make, fresh cakes and ice creams. My uncle owned the slaughterhouse, so I grew up thinking everybody ate tongues, sweetbreads, and garlic until I was about 11 or 12. And he competed in the neighborhood, over who had the best tomatoes or vegetables. And I was embarrassed because my dad grew cucumbers and tomatoes between the bushes. So my background, for me, once I realized it was very old world, was actually very embarrassing. And my family was somewhat obese, so I did everything I could to get away from food. So this is late 60s when I graduated from high school and then went to college. I cooked my way through everything and became a single parent, which is why I have real compassion for any of you that are doing this and as single parent, or either male or female. And got married at 19, was a single parent by 21. It was the early 70s. It was the time of free love and, everybody living together. And I joined the local food co-op because that's what we did, and I got all my food in bulk, and it was all clean food. It was a time when we didn't use these words. There was the word organic, but you couldn't even, you wouldn't use the word organic because you were such a hippie if you did. But the way the restaurant started was not about organic. And sometimes people say, oh, you're the Alice Waters in the South Bay, and Alice and I started it for different reasons at about the same time. But what was a part of my background, especially having a little kid at the age of 21 and single parent at 23 and living in Sufi houses and communes, was that I wanted him to have clean food. No chemicals, no preservatives, no artificial hormone, no anything not real. So that's the real basis of the food in this restaurant. It wasn't about organic. That naturally spilled over to organic and local. So I was a draft counselor and married a conscientious objector at the age of 19. And so my politics were anti-Vietnam War, that again spilled into food when I got to California. And we used to do benefits for Joan Baez and Humanitas, and the restaurant was very involved on global issues in the mid-70s when we opened late for the train. But wait, let me back up. So the way I got to California was I was living in Philadelphia, going to Temple as a single parent on welfare because my parents went bankrupt. They lost the store. We had nothing. So I went on welfare and begged the welfare department to help me get through college. Did it, lived in a community, crazy, wonderful, mid-70s time. Hitchhiked through Canada. I hitchhiked a lot. Hitchhiked through Canada, and one of the trips, I didn't like the person I was with because he didn't share his food. So I woke somebody up, got into California with somebody got back in the United States with a guy named Peter, and there's a whole book of the trip right here, named Peter, who was from Palo Alto. Went back to Palo Alto, got off welfare, got my college degree, was not in a relationship with the guys that brought me back to California, but decided, you know, I think you should move to California. I'm coming to get you. Came to get me in a 1967 Volkswagen bus, drove through the United States, southern United States for 3.5 months, cooked my way through, and landed in Palo Alto. It was not about the restaurant business then. I was an embroiderer. I was not a food person, even though I cooked everywhere.
Did you be an embroiderer?
Yes, I was an embroiderer. I don't know where my sign went. Oh, there it is. This was my sign in my booth at the Artifactory before I became a Good Earth waitress. And Mia is now wearing one of my jean jackets that I embroidered. But obviously I couldn't make enough money being an embroiderer. So I went to the Good Earth, became a Good Earth waitress, met a man named Bob Cool. He was opening a steak and French fry house. I'm just getting you into where this all came from. I cooked all the time. He was opening a steak and French fry restaurant with a friend, and I said, well, I cook, but I cook, you know, from the food co-op. And he said, all right, let's taste your food. They tasted my food. We fell in love. We opened Late for the Train, which was one of the first, it's being written up in a big book that's being written, one of the first organic restaurants in the country. But we didn't know that, and we didn't even know what that meant. It was, the bottom line was, I wanted everything from scratch. Everything didn't match in the restaurant because I had a welfare mentality. We bought everything at the thrift store. We opened the restaurant for $8,000, including food, inventory, taxes, licenses, remodel, everything, because we did it all ourselves. And it became an instant success. It was a happening place. Whole Earth Catalog started there. If any of you know what the Whole Earth Catalog is, Smith & Hawkins started there. God, what other things? It was this really cool breakfast and lunch place. So, are you bored yet? I still have enough time, right? So, so Late for the Train was fine with me. I had 2 children. Bob and I had a child too, so I had a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. And then Bob decided we were not really restaurateurs until we opened a dinner house. Biggest fight in my marriage was on a Thanksgiving because I refused to open Flea Street. I came kicking and screaming to Flea Street because at the time I was the chef for most of the years. But we opened it, and I just wanted, if you haven't heard the story of opening night, I thought I didn't tell anybody, but you know what I'm like. I thought I didn't tell anybody. There were 165 people lined up around the corner because we had Late for the Train, and we had no clue what we were doing. Entrees were coming out after appetizers. We were mobbed with people, and some people remember that from the kitchen I yelled, "Shut the fucking door," at 7 o'clock because it was so horrible. But that was the beginning of Flea Street. Yeah. And at Late for the Train, at the beginning, I was this, you know, I was a woman that went from being a love child and hippie to somebody who had to figure out how to do business and cook at the same time. I hand wrote all the menus myself. These are a few that I saved from Flea Street. You'll see that dinner was $12 for a three-course meal. If you haven't seen these are just a few. Some of I didn't save all of them, but I would apologize for people for having to charge them for food. And I had to learn how to be a restaurateur. It was really, really hard. But I would confront people, you know, I hate to say it, but lace dresses and bralettes at those days, and I would want to know what was in the food. That was the biggest thing. I was such a badass. They just didn't know what to do with me because no one knew what was in food. So we would UPS Muir Glen tomatoes in. We had no meat on the menu. Everybody thought I was a vegetarian because I didn't want to eat meat with the hormones in it. But it kept evolving to where it is now, where way back then we wanted to know where everything came from, and we still want to. So somebody looked at me and said, "You've got to start writing." So I started writing magazines. I started writing in this is 1991. So I started writing for a little magazine called Peninsula Magazine, and you could look at these, but they're really fun articles that are all vegetable oriented because all the cooking I did started at the farmer's market. There was one farmer's market in Palo Alto. It was illegal for cooks to go in, so they would let me in it before 8 a.m. in the morning with my 1967 pickup truck, and I would just buy as much as I could before the bell rang, and then I had to get out because I wasn't allowed to be there. I was buying commercially rather than as the farmer's market. So I started writing, and then I wrote for 11 years to the San Jose Mercury News. I just found these today, thrown in a box. It was so much fun. And then And then I wrote for Weider Corporation. I wrote for fitness magazines for 6 years, just talking about clean food. I was the first writer that wasn't using like artificial peanut butter or low-fat anything. I was just using real food, so they just loved what the recipes were like, and I wrote as I was still running the restaurant. And then I wrote the first book, which was Tomatoes. We've written 7. Tomatoes, onions, breakfast in bed, toast, Your Organic Kitchen, which was a flop because 10 years ago nobody was into organics, and then One Pot and Simply Organic. But for me, writing was the hardest thing to do, but everybody said I had to do it if I was going to take the restaurant to a different level. So I did it, and honestly, I hate writing books. It was like, and the thought of another book was like, but I did it, and it helped a lot. I think it's helped the restaurants, but the books are really about family. You'll see they're almost all vegetable based, and they're very simple food, which is part of why I love Carlos here, because he gets that from the beginning it was ingredient driven. And we used to be criticized for food. People say the food is so much better now, and it is, because everything's changed. People are eating differently, but our food was so simple. People would say, wow, those mashed potatoes are really good, and I say, it's about the potatoes, or it's about the butter. Oh my God, this is so good, because it's just plain pot roast. But of course, they make it much more exotic, but I think it's still very, very simple ingredient-driven food. So moving ahead, why Jay-Z Cool? Because that was the second restaurant. I was riding my bike and jogging and decided that I wanted to offer health benefits and medical benefits, and we were too small. So I just opened this restaurant not knowing what we were doing, hoping I could make the company big enough to offer medical and dental benefits, and that's literally why I opened the second restaurant, clueless as to how to cater or how to run a deli. I just wanted to offer people health. I know, it's pathetic. I just wanted to offer people medical and health dental benefits, so opened it. It was so hard. It's such a hard place, but at least we got to start on catering. And in the midst of all that, there are pictures of me, I think, on the wall on one of the restaurants. I looked awful. It's because I was still in the kitchen down there, and the Cantor Arts Center came over and said, we want you to open a cafe there here. And I looked at him, I said, no fucking way. No. And they said, oh, okay. And then someone walked with me at the Cantor and said, are you crazy? You have to open this restaurant. So literally, I borrowed everything I had. We never made money. I borrowed enough money for $50,000 to open the Cantor, and we just did it. I know. And the real truth is, I couldn't have done any of this without the help of everybody who's helped me all the way along, and all the people who have taught me about food. You know, when somebody does something wrong, they teach you how to do it right. So I learned all in the 37 years that I've been doing it, how to do this from other people. And then Menlo Business Park opened because Jay-Z Cool's lease ran out and it was too small. And John Tarleton built us a kitchen, and now we have a big catering kitchen. And that just happened because of space, and we were running 3 restaurants by then. So I handwrote every menu. And I brought this, I'll let you look through these things. So this is a little scrapbook. The pictures are taken out, Jonah took out for my 60th birthday. But these are absolutely, some of them are family, but then they go into places of the very beginning of Late for the Train, which was a very, very magical, loving place. I used to stand in front of it and say, oh my God, the community owns it. And yes, I owned a motorcycle, and it was really a little hippie restaurant, but you'll see it had flowered wallpaper too. And then this, and I hung when we opened this place, I hung the wallpaper, made the curtains, did everything. Now I'm so glad you're here. But and then here you'll see us, this is another phase of Flea Street and what it looked like when we all had long hair. I remember the time when I was so connected to everybody, when it was so tiny, and God, on Valentine's Day, you don't want to hear this, but I bought every single person a present, but I handmade it. And when I handmade it, I wrapped it by stitching cloth together. You know, I was so tiny and everything. And to watch it grow and to feel the responsibility to not go out of business, but it's been really hard. And I do a lot of public speaking, and often I'll say I could have been through Stanford Business School about 4 times for all the money I've lost trying to learn how to do this. And I remember putting my head on the desk in the office sometimes thinking, I was so in debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars, not a little bit, mortgaging my house. My kids were freaking out, like, oh my God, you have a house and you're mortgaging? I said, what am I going to do? I owe the farmers money. And magically a review would be written, or because I knew how to survive on nothing, I was able to go down to nothing and just get back in there and work hard and build it back up again. So this company has been like, it has not been the way it is now. This is just, my kids are, wow. Do you have Francisco? Pictures of Francisco. My children worked here, they had to, we didn't have money. Joshua rode his bike here. You'll see when Moss is here, I'll say, I'm not your grandmother anymore. Because my kids had to fill it in with you. I said, if you want to work here, you have to be part of staff. You don't eat, you don't do anything unless you're with them. And they did. So if I'm tough sometimes, it's because I'm trying to hold it all together. And we are. It's pretty cool. Okay, specials. I used to do those on blue craft paper at night because there was no computer with whiteout. And then I would get up in the morning, and it was awful, and I'd be a mess. I'd get up in the morning and go to the kitchen and cook it. And I changed it completely. Those are kind of the same every 2 weeks. They would, my family didn't like it. It was really crazy. Well, when Bob and I divorced in 1989, there are other personal parts of this whole story, of course, but when Bob and I parted in 1989, he took late for the train and I took Fleet Street because there was no chef here. And I was in the kitchen. And that was the one that made money, and he was an attorney. So it closed about 5 years ago, finally. But I haven't been there for about 25 years. But all the recipes were written down and original. Our own.
And it's where Mike's.
It's where Mike's. No, the original Late for the Train was by the train station. That's why it was called Late for the Train. And you'll see pictures in this little scrapbook. You'll see us riding our motorcycles over humps next to the old Late for the Train. It was a cinder block restaurant. We could not use the word organic, by the way. We couldn't put it on the menu. People would laugh at us, scoff at us, and so it's a napkin organic. And the smoking section, so every once in a while slip and call that the smoking section, because we put the smokers down there, and at Late for the Train, we built this thing out of like wooden boxes for everybody to sit outside, and they protested against us because, but how can you eat clean food and smoke around here?
And when you first opened Fleet Street, was it all of these rooms?
Yes, Fleet Street was all of these rooms. It didn't look like that because that wall was purple and it had hippie blankets on it. And we would, to take people up in that room, it was like taking them to the dungeon. It was like, it was just a terrible dark room. And then I started redoing everything. And a lot of people helped. Gary was one of the people that helped too to start changing. Imagine, it was the end of the 70s. It was not even the 80s, so it was a different time. How many of you were born then? Babies?
75.
Yeah, 70, so yeah. Barely.
That was fantastic.
Was that okay?
No, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
It's, and it's all about care, because it was so wonderful to hear Andy say that yesterday, that really it's always been about how to care.
Can we get the potted plants back in?
My mother used to water the plants, and my father, Oh, and the tablecloths used to be burgundy, purple. They would just change colors. Nothing matched. All the salt and peppers were different. I saved them for my granddaughter. Every plate was different. Every fork was different. Everything was different.
Was this area affluent, or did that also change?
Well, this area was, I could still live in a house with Sufis then. It was a think tank more. It wasn't what I would call affluent. It was Stanford University.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more a vibrant area. Do you need specials?
Well,
It was vibrant. Yeah, the .com, Silicon Valley changed it, but I'll tell you, in 1989, yeah, probably, when Silicon Valley and Apple cut all their expense accounts, I was doing well. They all walked in, they were sitting at the bar, and they were really excited. They were having drinks, and I said, what's going on? They said, well, we're here to celebrate because our expense accounts got cut. I went, really? And then they stopped. It was one of the tips. They just stopped coming. And the location sucks. I know everybody says it's a great location. Think about it. There's nothing up here. I'm across from the gas station. I built the deck to block the gas station, not for outdoor eating. Everybody forgets about us up here, but now we're destination. And again, it's about everybody. It's about Carlos. It's about the kitchen. It's about you. We're destination. They say, "Oh, you're such a great location." I'm thinking, "Wow, that's such a nice thing to say." And that kind of leads me to, this is a poster of Eco Farm, and if you haven't heard about it, I've been going to Eco Farm for 30 years. And when I wrote my first book, Tomatoes, they said, "Well, what organizations do you belong to?" Expecting me to say Food and Wine Society and, International Association of Culinary Professionals. I said, "I belong to Eco Farm, Organic Farming Research." I know. Organic Research Farming Research Foundation. They said, no, like food organization. Oh, no, these are food organizations. I go to Eco Farm every year with the farmers. So we've been going, I've been a part of it for 30 years, and now Carlos is part of it. We're hoping he starts a chef's organization. We'll talk about that. 5 more minutes? So it was about farmers were our heroes, and chefs are not my heroes. I don't even like the word, but real cooks and people who grow our food are our heroes. And then I had to learn about service. Even though I was a waitress for almost a year and a half before opening the place, I ended up in the kitchen. But service to me was always just an extension of the back. We were all doing it together. We shared everything at the beginning. Remember, this was a long time ago. And it was about everybody cared from beginning to end, the same as it is now. It's no different, which I'm so grateful that we're still like this. It was about caring for Renee and Fabian and the dishwashers and making sure that all the way through from beginning to end, from the definition of real sustainability, the soil, the farmer, the people who prepare the food, the people who cook the food, the people who offer the food to the customers, all the way to the people, back to the soil. That's always been the backbone of the company. And it was not easy. I didn't have to pay taxes until 4 years ago because we didn't make money. This is so different now, you have no idea. It's really exciting. At first I didn't know what to do with it. I think some of you were here when we started getting really busy, and I think it's going to go away in a minute. This is not going to last. And a lot of it has to do with I was able to hire better people, Omnivore's Dilemma, the young are eating here now. All of you really get it. You tell the message instead of me beating on everybody, please talk about it. You all embrace it. So that's why I get to drink cocktails at the bar and let you all do it. I've always believed that we were perfectly imperfect. I was a recluse for 7 years. I was mortified anytime anybody complained about anything. But now I understand that we just get ourselves back up and start all over and do it again. I believe that we forgive ourselves nightly. None of us are, again, able to do things right. It's okay. Just get up the next morning and fix it and make it right. And in the present, I think how I would describe right now in the restaurants after all these years is that I'm amazed, I'm humbled, and I am incredibly grateful, but I'm not overwhelmed anymore. And what I see in the future is that we are a part of a concentric circle, just like when we open Late for the Train. We start right here. We support everybody right here. And then we keep stretching out and get more and more global, which we weren't for a while. We were so local, and now we're stretching globally to see what we can do with our success. That's what I'm hoping to do, is the more successful we become, the more we can share it. The more I hope to give all of you more. The more I hope to pass it on to others so they can just keep doing this, because if anything, I think we're more alive than ever. It's just so exciting. And I hope that you can all help me in creating a more sustainable business model. And the biggest thing for me at my age is to stay open to new music, change, to keep listening, and to keep moving this place forward with everybody. So, what else?
When did you change from Susan to Jessie?
It was an Allman Brothers concert. I decided I didn't like the Grateful Dead as much as the Allman Brothers, and I was spinning furiously to the song Jessica, and I decided that was my name. It didn't go over well, so I moved to California. That was Philadelphia. I decided I'm Jessie, I'm not Susie. That's it. At least I wasn't Rainbow or Bird. I could have been, I could have been Flying Cloud or Bird, but
I have a couple.
That's why I'm
things
called
they
Jessie
need
Sue.
to-
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Is it enough?
That's awesome.